My name is Juno Vega. I'm 28, and my studio smells like steam, muslin, and the kind of stubborn hope you can't Febreze out. It's late September in Los Angeles, the kind of dry heat that makes the river look like a glare. I rent a wedge of a warehouse in Frogtown, right along the bike path. By day, joggers wave through my open roll-up door at piles of fabric and racks of unfinished dreams. By night, I leave the door cracked just enough for the neon from the taco truck to paint my concrete floor magenta. I'm an indie fashion designer, which is a poetic way of saying I've learned how to make a $2 zipper look like a miracle. My collection, my baby, was called Afterlight. Slashes of sun-bleached denim, bias-cut silks that fell like dusk, hardware that clicked together with tiny magnetic stars. It wasn't just clothes. It was a map of how I survived the last year. The breakups, the overdraft fees, the hangers that clattered like wind chimes when the landlord rattled the door. I'd booked a tiny slot at a community runway in Echo Park. Not Fashion Week. More like Fashion Week adjacent, with zines on folding tables and models who paid in pizza. Still, it was a runway. Still, it was mine. The night before the show, my best friend Luna perched on my cutting table cradling instant coffee like it was vintage champagne. "You're trending in the neighborhood," she grinned, which is the exact same thing as globally famous, but with more potholes. "Manifest it," I said, pinning a collar to a mannequin. "Manifest me a rich patron with symmetrical cheekbones." We laughed, the kind of laugh that keeps your hands steady. The show went fine. No fireworks. No power outages. One heel snapped. A model finished barefoot and made it look like a choice. Someone's toddler screamed into an empty tote bag and created avant-garde percussion. A local blogger took photos of my back instead of my garments because the graffiti mural behind me had a raccoon wearing a crown. But afterward, back in my studio, something in my chest felt stitched shut and finished. Complete. I laid out every look, 12 outfits, 12 little biographies, documented them on my phone and hard drive, labeled folders with times and dates like the careful librarian of my own ambition. 2 weeks later, I stopped being invisible. It wasn't because of a feature. It wasn't because a celebrity wore my dress and mispronounced my name charmingly. It was because someone took everything. "Have you seen this?" Luna's text exploded into my morning like an alarm. The link was to a glossy teaser video. A famous luxury house, Marinoir, dropping their spring line. Black serif letters, cinematic fog. A model stepping through sunlight like a myth. Then the clothes. My shape of denim. My off-kilter placket that curved like a question mark. My silver magnetic stars closing a drape I knew by muscle memory. Not inspired by, not echoes of. Copy-paste, then printed money on it. I watched the clip 3 times, blinking hard like that would change pixels into ethics. "No," I said out loud to the empty studio. "No, no, no," Luna called. "Juno? It's mine." I heard my own voice from somewhere far away, thin as thread. "It's my hem. It's my hem." She didn't say I was being dramatic. She didn't ask if I'd considered what a coincidence was. She breathed with me, steady, anchoring. "Okay," she said. "We breathe, and then we burn it all down." Gently, my chest shook. Not crying, like the body's version of turning pages too fast. I scrolled the comments. Worldly admiration. Marinoir doing what they do best. Fire emojis, people tagging editors and stylists. The video views spun up like a slot machine hitting triple sevens. I pulled up my Afterlight folder. Photos stamped with the date. Videos of my models rehearsing, herky-jerky and endearing. Close-ups of my magnets clicking shut. Me in a mirror at 2 a.m., hair in a scarf, whispering, "This works," like a prayer. Every stitch was proof of my existence. The agency number on Marinoir's press release was buried under the credits like an apology. I called anyway. A voice answered so cheerful it felt like mocking. Marinoir PR, Marielle speaking. Hi. I tried to hit a register that sounded professional and not like I'd been gut-punched. I'm calling because your spring teaser features several design elements identical to my collection shown September 12th in Echo Park. I'm Juno Vega. I can send references and time-stamped. We're so excited you're excited, Marielle chirped. I can note your feedback and pass it along. This isn't feedback. I stood, pacing between muslin piles like a caged cat. It's theft. A pause. Then the voice dropped into a careful, padded tone you use when you handle glass. Our creative process is proprietary. Any similarities to external work are purely coincidental. Please direct legal inquiries to... I hung up. At the far end of the studio, the sun sliced through the roll-up door and lit a line across my table. Dust motes swam like tiny lifeboats. I tried to pull a breath all the way in. It stuck halfway. They'd used my stars. Even my mistakes. That's the part the movies don't tell you. It's not just the big shapes that get copied. It's the little accidents you loved into meaning. My bias cut that skewed a fraction too far and became a signature. The unlined pocket I kept because it made the jacket breathe. I called my mother in New Mexico. She runs a hair salon and believes in saints and side hustles. Baby, she said, after listening, you didn't sew all that work into the void. It's in you. It didn't disappear just because someone with better lighting took pictures. I feel erased, I said. Erased? She tutted. Mija, erasing takes energy. They didn't erase you. They traced you. The thing about being a small designer is you learn how to be your own lawyer, publicist, therapist, and UPS clerk. That morning, I dragged the lawyer folder out of my brain and opened my messiest drawer. Contracts, email trails, photos. I printed the Marinoir stills and pinned them next to my photos. Left mine. Right. Theirs. A mirror. Not perfect, but close enough to make my jaw ache. At noon, the studio neighbors started showing up with condolences disguised as curiosity. A ceramicist with clay fingers. A drummer who smelled like smoke. A screen printer who offered to make slogan shirts that said they wish in block letters. Let me post it, Luna urged. Side by sides. People will see. I imagined the dog pile, the trolls, the lawyers sliding into my email like knives. I don't want to be the angry girl who screams into the void, I said. So, be the precise girl who shows receipts, Luna said. I opened my laptop. My hands hovered over the keyboard like they were afraid to land. What if everyone loved Marinoir more? What if I became a cautionary tale designers told their interns about keeping their mouths shut? What if I poked the beast and it sat on me? I watched the teaser again, this time in slow motion. Their model turned, and the magnet stars winked in the light exactly where I placed them, like a constellation I'd invented. My ribs went tight around a rising heat. Not humiliation, not quite rage. Clarity. They didn't just steal a design. They stole narrative, and narrative is the only currency I own. Across the street, the taco truck guy, Paco, leaned through my open door. Juno, he called. You want extra salsa? Drown it, I said, my voice steadier. Drown everything. He laughed, set a paper plate down like an offering. People talk, he added, face turning thoughtful. Some of those people? They're important. Say what you need to say, chica. At 2:17 p.m., my email pinged with a message from a burner-style account. No signature, no greeting, just a subject line. Check your NDA. My stomach flipped. I didn't have an NDA with Marinoir. I hadn't consulted. I hadn't even met them. Another ping. A DM from a stylist I'd met once at a flea market. notorious for orbiting big houses. Off the record, it said, you didn't hear this from me, but a freelance pattern maker I know did a rush job for a mystery client in August. Your name came up. Thought you'd want to know. Dots became a line. A rush job. August. My fittings. My intern who'd quit abruptly and took her tote bag with a little too much stiffness. And then, as if the day had decided subtlety was cancelled, an invitation arrived in my inbox. Marinoir invites you to an exclusive preview of our spring collection. Tonight, 8 p.m., a downtown rooftop. Black tie, RSVP essential. I read it twice, my own name shining in an email they'd probably blasted to every emerging creative in the city like confetti. Are you kidding me? Luna said, reading over my shoulder. They invite you to the murder of your own work? I felt the heat sharpen, pointy as a needle. The invitation wasn't just an insult, it was a door. That's the room, I said. Juno. Luna's voice carried every protective syllable of my last name like armor. They'll have PR people, security NDAs on napkins. They'll smile with knife teeth. Then I'll bring a sharper smile. What are you going to do? She asked. My eyes cut to the wall of pinned photos, mine and theirs, left and right, and the clock that blinked 2:43 like a dare. Somewhere under the fear, something lighter uncurled. Not vengeance. Not yet. Strategy. I'm going to get close enough to carve my name back into what's mine, I said, pulse loud in my ears. And I'm going to make them say my name out loud. Luna exhaled, a laugh and a worry braided together. Then we need a dress that walks into a rooftop and doesn't apologize. Oh, I said, turning to the rack, mind already sketching. I have just the thing. The rack shivered when I touched it, metal humming a small anthem. I pulled the garment bag I'd been saving like a secret. White silk, cut on the bias so it swam, with a diagonal seam that sliced like a comet tail. On the chest, a single magnetic star, gleaming like punctuation, not a period. An opening quote. I slipped it onto the form and watched it wake up under the late light. Then my phone buzzed again, a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. Is this Juno Vega? A man's voice, smooth, imported. This is Etienne Vale, creative director at Marinoir. I understand there's been chatter. Perhaps we can avoid any unfortunate misunderstandings. I'd like to speak. Privately. Tonight. Before the show. The silence after that felt like the pause before a conductor drops the baton. He wanted a private conversation. He wanted me quiet. I looked at the dress, at the magnet that held like a heartbeat. I put the phone on speaker. I'll be there, I said, smoothing the seam with my thumb, feeling the stitch under my skin like it belonged to me. And I won't be alone. Excellent, he purred, discretion appreciated. He hung up. I didn't. I turned to Luna, and she was already pulling a camera battery off the charger, eyes bright, adrenaline turning her hands into small, efficient birds. Game on, she said. Outside, the sun slid down the river and caught on the glossy roofs of cars like spilled mercury. In my chest, the clarity hardened. If they wanted discretion, they should have picked a different girl. Los Angeles at night is a different animal. By day, it's a heat wave and a hangover. By night, it's sequins and shadows that know your secrets. Luna drove. I sat in the passenger seat, smoothing invisible wrinkles from my white silk dress. The magnetic star on my chest winked with every turn of the streetlight. My hands wouldn't stop moving. Adjusting the seam, rechecking my phone, touching the zipper of my clutch like it was a rosary. Inside the clutch, a flash drive with my full lookbook, every photo time-stamped. A printout of Marinoir's teaser video stills, side by sides with mine. And, tucked between them, the burner email. Check your NDA. Weapons. Not bullets, but sharp enough. Luna glanced at me, eyeliner sharp enough to kill. You're sure about this? No, I said, but that never stopped me before. The rooftop was on Broadway, a skyscraper with chrome doors that swallowed us whole. The lobby was marbled, chilled, smelling faintly of expensive water. A hostess with a headset smiled like she'd been trained by wolves. She scanned my name, nodded, and led us into an elevator that whispered upward. When the doors opened, the air smelled like lavender smoke and champagne. Fairy lights strung overhead like stolen constellations. Models with impossible cheekbones drifted between glass tables. Editors, stylists, influencers, the whole circus in curated black. And in the center, their clothes. My clothes. On mannequins lit like saints, the stolen collection stood bold and confident. My shapes, my angles, my stars. Every detail glimmered with money that wasn't mine. My throat burned. Breathe, Luna murmured, touching my elbow. Etienne Vale appeared before us like a stage cue. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, wearing a tux that probably cost more than my rent for 6 months. His smile was curated, warm enough to disarm, cold enough to remind you he'd never need warmth. Ms. Vega, he said, his accent brushing each syllable. Enchanté. You look radiant. I dress myself, I said flatly. He chuckled as though I'd made a charming joke. A word? He gestured toward a side terrace away from the crowd. Luna's eyes narrowed. I'm coming. Etienne tilted his head, considering, then nodded. As you wish. We stepped onto the terrace. The city stretched below, glittering and careless. Etienne lit a cigarette, exhaled smoke like punctuation. Let's speak plainly, he said. You are talented. I see that, but talent, it needs a stage, and without a stage, talent dies unseen. My jaw clenched. That's a beautiful way of saying you stole my work. He waved a hand, dismissive, inspired, echoed. The world has no patience for small distinctions. What matters is narrative. We tell it. They believe it. That is power. I have proof, I said, pulling the clutch tighter under my arm. Every file, every stitch, documented before you even whispered spring. Etienne's smile sharpened. Proof is a fragile thing, Ms. Vega. Ask yourself, if a tree falls and Vogue does not hear it, does it make a sound? The heat rose in my chest. You don't get to erase me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Erase? Number. Incorporate. I'm offering you a future. Work with us. Quietly. A generous stipend, your designs under our umbrella, your name in our contracts, though not in our headlines. You will eat well, dress well, and never worry about rent again. No one will know you sold your ghost, except you. And me. The words slithered into my ears, tempting in the way poison is when you're thirsty. Behind me, Luna snapped, She's not a ghost. She's a storm. Etienne's eyes flicked to her, then back to me. Think carefully. The industry does not reward martyrs, it buries them. The city hummed below. Inside, I could hear the crowd applauding something, maybe another mannequin unveiled, maybe another lie. My clutch felt heavier. Proof pressed against my palm, begging to be released. But Etienne leaned in, voice silken. Take my hand, Juno. Let us rewrite your story together. Or walk away, and watch as we publish your life without your name. I met his eyes. Calm, cold, certain. And then, like fate itself had impeccable timing, Luna's phone buzzed. She glanced down and gasped. What? I hissed. She turned the screen toward me. A DM, from a blue-check influencer with 1 million followers. Saw Marinoir's line. Isn't this your work? Send me receipts. I'll post. Etienne's smile faltered for the first time. He hadn't seen it, but I had. A door had just opened wider than his rooftop. I slipped the flash drive from my clutch, holding it between two fingers like a card in a game. You said narrative is power, Etienne. Well, I'm done whispering. I'm about to make the whole city scream. For the first time, his composure cracked. Smoke curled around his face like a mask slipping. Careful, Ms. Vega, he murmured, voice low and dangerous. Careful what you ignite. I smiled, sharp as glass. I don't start fires. I finish them. Behind us, the applause swelled. A spotlight turned, sweeping the terrace. In the doorway, an editor I recognized, one of the sharpest tongues in the business, was watching. She'd heard. Maybe not every word, but enough. Etienne stiffened. The mask tried to slide back into place, but the narrative had already shifted, and I held the match. The editor's gaze lingered like a camera lens. Etienne's smile was still pasted on, but his cigarette trembled just slightly at the edge. Enjoy the evening, he murmured, voice clipped, before retreating back into the crowd with the grace of a man who knew how to vanish before a storm broke. I didn't move. My pulse was too loud, my skin buzzing like I'd been wired into the rooftop lights. Luna touched my shoulder. That was it. You saw his face. He's scared. Not enough, I said, clutch tightening in my hand. Fear doesn't trend. Proof does. We stepped back inside. The rooftop was a carnival of glass flutes and cameras flashing against the skyline. The mannequins gleamed, draped in fabric I knew like the back of my own hand. And then I saw her. An influencer, Callie Kane, famous for destroying brands with a single video. She was live streaming, her phone angled high, her words carrying over the crowd. Marinoir's spring line. Gorgeous, sure, but some of my DMs are saying it looks real familiar. Luna's eyes went wide. She's baiting you. Or helping me. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I crossed the rooftop, heels sharp on the concrete, and stopped right in front of her live stream. Want receipts? I asked. The chat on her phone exploded instantly. Emojis, capital letters, question marks. Callie's eyebrows shot up, the exact reaction she'd perfected for millions of viewers. Wait, she said, lowering her phone toward me. Are you Juno Vega, designer of Afterlight, the line they stole? I pulled the side-by-side printouts from my clutch, holding them up against the mannequins like a courtroom exhibit. The camera caught every detail, my denim curve, my magnetic star, my seams. Then their identical twins, standing behind me like smug ghosts. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered my name. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." Callie's eyes gleamed like she'd just been handed pure gold. And you're saying Marinoir copied your work? Exactly. Not saying, I shot back. Showing. I tapped the timestamp at the corner of my photo. Clear. Undeniable. Weeks before Marinoir's teaser ever dropped, the chat went nuclear. Emojis. Fire. Emojis. Cancelled. We see you, girl. Receipts don't lie. The air shifted. What had been admiration for Marinoir curdled into suspicion. People pulled out phones, whispering, snapping pictures, sending texts. And then the editor, the one who'd overheard Etienne, stepped forward. Her press badge gleamed under the fairy lights. "I'd like to schedule an interview with you," she said, her voice cutting clean through the chatter. "Tomorrow morning. Feature story." Luna squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. But before I could answer, the rooftop lights dimmed. A spotlight snapped to the far end of the terrace. Etienne stood there, microphone in hand, his face a portrait of calm denial. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began smoothly, "we at Marinoir are proud to present a collection inspired by the universality of human creativity. In art, ideas echo across borders, across time. Any resemblance to external work is merely the harmony of shared imagination." Bullshit! Someone shouted from the crowd. The audience laughed. Short, sharp, dangerous laughter. My heart thundered. This was the moment. Etienne was spinning his web, but for once, people weren't buying it. I lifted Callie's phone higher so the live stream caught my face, my dress, my star. "I'm Juno Vega," I said, steady now, voice cutting through the rooftop like a blade. "And I'm not a ghost in someone else's story. I'm the author. And this," I pointed at the mannequins, "is plagiarism, plain and simple." For a second, silence, a charged electric pause, and then applause, scattered but real, from strangers, from people with cameras, from voices that carried. Etienne's jaw tightened. He forced a smile, but his hand on the microphone was pale and shaking. This wasn't over. He still had lawyers. He still had money. But the first crack in his empire had just been carved open, live for the entire internet to see. As Luna and I slipped out of the rooftop, my phone buzzed with notifications climbing like fireworks. Tags, mentions, editors, influencers, strangers screaming my name into the digital sky. But buried under the noise was another DM. No username, just an anonymous account. "Careful, Juno. They play dirtier than you think." My breath caught. The words felt colder than Etienne's threat. Because if tonight was only the beginning, tomorrow would be war. By sunrise, my phone was a battlefield. Mentions exploding, DMs piling, articles with headlines like "Indie designer accuses Mare Noire of theft and has proof." David versus Goliath, but make it fashion. Who is Juno Vega? The internet had officially found me. Luna sprawled across my studio couch, scrolling furiously. "They're split. Half the comments are behind you. The other half? Trolls with fake avies saying you're clout chasing." I rubbed my temples. "Let me guess. Bots?" "Bots and bitter interns," she said. "And probably Mare Noire's PR budget." On the rack beside me, my white silk dress shimmered faintly in the daylight. The star on the chest winked like it knew this wasn't over. My laptop pinged. An email from a lawyer, not mine. "Ms. Vega, Mare Noire considers your public statements defamatory. If you continue, we will pursue legal action. Cease and desist immediately." I laughed, sharp and hollow. "They're fast." "Scared," Luna corrected, tossing me her phone. "Read this." It was a thread from the influencer Callie Kane, posted at 2 a.m. She'd clipped my rooftop confrontation, spliced it with my lookbook images, and dropped it to her million followers. When indie designers create, they risk it all. When corporations copy, they profit. Here's the side-by-side. You decide. Her post was at 2.7 million views. The replies were brutal. For Mare Noire. But then came the twist. Scrolling, I found screenshots of supposed evidence against me. A post claiming I'd once been an intern at Mare Noire, that I'd signed an NDA, that I'd stolen their concepts and was now pretending they were mine. Fake, fabricated, but convincing enough to muddy the water. My stomach dropped. "They're flipping the script," Luna cursed. "Of course they are. They have lawyers, money, media contacts. They'll bury you under paperwork and gossip until people can't tell truth from PR spin." I closed my eyes, inhaled sharp. "Unless I bury them first." That anonymous DM replayed in my head. "Careful. They play dirtier than you think." I opened the burner email again. "Check your NDA." It still made no sense. I never signed one. But someone else had. A knock rattled my studio door. Both Luna and I froze. Another knock, firmer. "Miss Vega." A man's voice, calm, official. "I represent a freelance pattern maker. He wants to talk." Luna mouthed. "Trap?" I shrugged, pulse racing, and opened the door a crack. A man in his 30s stood there, nervous, clutching a messenger bag like a shield. He slipped inside quickly, eyes darting. "My name's Devin," he said. I was contracted by Marinoir in August. Rush job. They sent me sketches. Not theirs. Yours. Exact copies." My throat tightened. "How do you know they were mine?" "Because your intern gave them to me." Luna shot up from the couch. "Which intern?" Devin swallowed hard. "Tall girl. Dark bob. Tattoo on her wrist. She said she was leaving your studio, but she brought a tote bag full of samples. I didn't question it. I needed the money." "Ray." My stomach dropped like a trapdoor. Ray, the intern who quit abruptly, stiff as starch, saying she got a better opportunity. "That NDA?" Devin continued. "They made me sign it. Said I could never disclose who the designs came from. But watching you last night." He pulled a flash drive from his bag. I couldn't keep it quiet. "This has everything. Emails, files, contracts, timestamps, proof." My hands shook as I took it. "Why help me now?" He met my eyes, guilt flooding his face. "Because I realized they didn't just steal your work. They stole your future, and I don't want that on my conscience." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A notification from Twitter. No, everywhere. Marinoir had just released a statement. "We categorically deny Ms. Vega's accusations. She is a former intern who violated confidentiality agreements. Any claims otherwise are slanderous." The lie hit like a punch, and it was already spreading faster than the truth. Luna cursed under her breath. "They're trying to erase you with your own ghost." I stared at the flash drive in my palm, heat rising like a fever. "Then we burn their ghost to the ground," I said. Because now I didn't just have receipts. I had the smoking gun. I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk in the studio, the flash drive plugged into my laptop like a detonator. File after file spilled open, emails between Marinoir executives, purchase orders to Devin, sketches traced over my patterns so sloppily you could still see my notes faintly scanned in the background. Every click of my mouse felt like hammering another nail into their coffin. But their statement was already everywhere. Blogs, fashion forums, TikToks dissecting whether I was a bitter ex-intern. The lie was spreading faster than wildfire. Luna paced behind me, muttering, "We drop this, we win. But if we drop it wrong, they'll twist it again." She wasn't wrong. Etienne was a master manipulator. If I just posted the files raw, he'd drown them in legal jargon. No, this needed to be loud, undeniable, and beautifully ugly for them. My phone buzzed. Callie Kane again. "Callie. Girl, they're painting you as an intern. You got ammo?" Me. "I've got more than ammo. I've got the gun." Callie. "Then let me help you fire it." I hesitated. Handing everything over to an influencer was risky. But Callie wasn't just anyone. Her whole brand was receipts or shut up. And she had an audience Marinoir couldn't buy. Before I could answer, Devin spoke up from the corner, where he'd been nursing a coffee like penance. "There's one more thing," he said, pulling a manila envelope from his bag. He slid it across the table. "Original sketches. The ones Ray gave me. I kept copies. I knew I'd need insurance." Inside were photocopies of my designs, my handwriting, my measurements, even my doodles in the margins. And at the bottom of the page, Ray's signature from when she'd cataloged the samples for me. Luna leaned over, eyes wide. "This isn't just proof. This is a confession in paper form." For the first time in weeks, my chest loosened. Then it's time to end this. We spent the whole day building the post, a thread, clean and surgical. 1. My original sketches, signed and dated. 2. Photos from the Echo Park runway, time-stamped. 3. Devin's emails with Marinoir executives demanding rush copies. 4. The photocopied designs with Ray's signature. 5. And finally, side-by-sides with their spring line. Every image watermarked. Every file backed up to 3 different clouds. At the end of the thread, I wrote only one line. I am not your intern. I am the designer. Afterlight, Marinoir theft. I hovered over the post button. My hand shook, but not from fear, from anticipation. Ready, Luna whispered. Ready, I said, and tapped. The thread went live at 8:43 p.m. By 8:44, it had 500 retweets. By 8:50, it had 10,000. The internet devoured it like blood and water. Fashion journalists jumped in, confirming my timestamps. Bloggers unearthed Ray's LinkedIn, where she proudly listed Marinoir freelance work dated the exact month she left my studio. Influencers tore apart Marinoir's denial line by line. And then, like fate handing me a gift, one of Marinoir's former employees quote-tweeted me. Can confirm. Etienne knew exactly what he was buying. We were told to clean the files and make them Marinoir ready. The house of cards collapsed in real time. Luna and I watched the screen glow like fireworks. But amid the celebration, another notification slid in. A DM from Ray herself. You don't know what you've started? Etienne won't just let this go. Be careful, Juno. They'll destroy you if they can't buy you. I stared at the words, bile rising in my throat. Because she was right about one thing. Etienne wouldn't surrender quietly. And tomorrow, the war would go offline. By morning, my thread wasn't just viral. It was everywhere. News alerts, podcasts, TikToks splicing my face with side-by-sides of Marinoir's line. The hashtag Afterlight trended worldwide, but with the spotlight came heat. My studio phone rang nonstop. Journalists, bloggers, strangers demanding interviews. Some cheered me as the underdog. Others accused me of clout chasing, faking, dragging a respected brand through the mud. And then the death threats started. Anonymous accounts. Comments like, "Careful, girl. We know where you work." Luna slammed her laptop shut. It's bots. Paid trolls. Classic PR warfare. I tried to laugh, but my stomach was a knot. Feels real enough when it lands in your inbox. At 10 a.m., my mother called from New Mexico. Baby, I saw the news. They're saying your name on TV. Her voice was proud, but tight. Just watch yourself. Men with money don't like being embarrassed. She wasn't wrong, because at 11:17, Etienne Vale himself broke silence. Marinoir's official account posted a glossy video. Etienne, calm as a saint, seated in front of a wall of fabric bolts. Fashion, he said, voice smooth, is a dialogue across generations. Ideas overlap. Resemblances occur. We celebrate young creatives. But what Ms. Vega calls theft, we call inspiration. We regret her confusion, and we will be pursuing appropriate legal remedies for her defamatory campaign. The comments flooded with snake emojis, but some defended him. He's so classy. He'd never steal. She's just bitter. The narrative was teetering again. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a breath. If he wants classy, I'll give him catastrophic. Devin, the pattern maker, cleared his throat from the corner. There's something else. You should see this. He slid over his laptop, pulling up a confidential PDF he'd been CC'd on by mistake weeks earlier. Marinoir's internal launch plan. And there it was, in black and white. Collection codename, Vega Project. My name. Right there in their documents. Luna's jaw dropped. Oh my God. They didn't even bother to hide it. Devin nodded grimly. They thought no one would ever see this. NDA kept me quiet. But now? It's yours. For a moment, the room spun. Proof was one thing. This was a nuclear bomb. Then we drop it, I said, fire tightening in my chest. No captions. No commentary. Just the file. But before I could post, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but something told me to pick up. Ms. Vega, a voice purred. Male, polished. This is Etienne. My pulse froze. How did you get my number? I have ways, he said smoothly. Listen to me. You've made your point. You've embarrassed us. Very clever. But you don't understand the forces you're provoking. Drop this now and we can make you comfortable. Very comfortable. A contract, resources, recognition. All you have to do is stop. My throat went dry. He wasn't even pretending anymore. This was a bribe dressed in velvet. And if I don't? I asked. His silence stretched. Then you will discover what it feels like to be irrelevant. Permanently. The line clicked dead. I stood there, phone hot in my hand, heart hammering. Luna's eyes were wide. What did he say? I swallowed. He said if I keep going, he'll erase me. The studio was silent except for the hum of my laptop fan. I pulled up the PDF again, the words Vega Project glowing on screen. Then let's make sure I'm too loud to erase, I whispered. And I hit post. The post detonated. The moment the screenshot of Vega Project hit Twitter, it spread like a lit match in a fireworks factory. No captions, no context. Just my name stamped inside Marinoir's official launch plan. By the time Luna refreshed the page, it had 20,000 shares. By the time she refreshed again, it was trending worldwide. #Vega Project. Fashion blogs published emergency breakdowns. Journalists zoomed in on the PDF like it was the Zapruder film. Even the late-night comedians jumped in, joking about Project Vega like it was a failed NASA mission. But for me, it wasn't funny. It was proof. Irrefutable. They couldn't spin it away this time. Or so I thought. Because Marinoir responded within the hour. A new statement, slick and soulless. The Vega Project refers to an internal code name inspired by the constellation, not Ms. Vega. Any claims otherwise are false. We urge the public not to be misled by misinformation. The audacity made my hands shake. They were gaslighting the world. Luna paced the studio, waving her phone like a weapon. They're scrambling. Look at this. Half their defenders are bots repeating the same line about constellations. Copy-paste. It's pathetic. But the other half? People who wanted to believe the brand, people who were already tired of the fight. And then the threats escalated. Not just online now. At 9 p.m., someone smashed a rock through the studio window. A note wrapped around it in neat handwriting. Stop, Juno. Luna froze. That's not bots. No, I whispered, my chest tight. That's real. We swept up the glass, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. This wasn't just about reputation anymore. This was physical. Dangerous. I thought about my mom back in New Mexico, probably glued to the TV, rosary in hand. I thought about Ray, wherever she was, writing NDAS in exchange for scraps. And I thought about Etienne, sitting in his penthouse, sipping champagne, confident he could outspend and outlast me. Then we make this bigger than me, I said finally. Bigger than hashtags. If they want to bury me, they'll have to bury the whole truth. The next morning, I walked into the offices of the Style Record, the biggest fashion paper in the city. The editor who'd overheard Etienne on the rooftop, her name was Karina Cho, met me in the lobby. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. You've got the receipts? She asked. I slid a folder across the table. Sketches, emails, the NDA Devon's files, the Vega Project PDF. Her expression didn't change, but I could see the fire in her pupils. This isn't just plagiarism. This is fraud. This is corporate theft on an international scale. Then publish it, I said. Don't just tweet it. Print it. Put it where their lawyers can't delete it. She tapped her pen against the folder. We'll need to verify, cross-check, call sources. But if this holds, Juno, this could destroy them. Good, I said, steady now. Because they tried to destroy me. Karina leaned back, studying me. You know they'll come for you harder after this, right? If we run this, you're not just a designer anymore. You're a whistleblower. I thought about Etienne's threat. I thought about the rock through my window. And then I thought about that rooftop, me standing in white silk with a star on my chest, and the crowd actually clapping. I can live with that, I said. She nodded. Then let's burn it down. By the time I left the building, the article was already in production. Not just a blog post, front page, Sunday edition, with legal muscle backing every word. And as Luna and I walked back to the car, my phone buzzed with a new message. From Etienne, a photo of my studio, taken just hours ago. Careful, Ms. Vega. Even stars burn out. The threat coiled around my throat like smoke, but instead of fear, something else rose inside me. Rage, sharp and incandescent. If he thought I was going to dim quietly, he'd forgotten the first rule of fire. It spreads. The article dropped on a Sunday morning. The style record, front page, bold black letters. The Vega Project. How Marinoir stole an indie designer's future. Underneath, a photo of me in my studio, arms crossed, fabrics hanging like armor behind me. My name in print, not as a footnote, not as an intern, as the headline. The story was brutal. Karina had laid it out like a trial. My sketches, my timestamps, Devin's NDA, Ray's betrayal, the codename Vega Project. Every thread tied neatly into a noose around Marinoir's neck. The fallout was immediate. By noon, their stock dropped 18%. By nightfall, half their celebrity ambassadors had paused partnerships. By the next morning, 2 major department stores announced they were pulling Marinoir's spring line pending investigation. And me? For the first time in my life, the world was looking at me on purpose. Reporters camped outside the studio. Young designers DM'd me, thanking me for speaking up. I even caught Paco from the taco truck showing off the paper to anyone who'd listen. You see? He told a customer, pointing at my picture. That's my neighbor. The one with the stars. But the victory wasn't clean. Ray never answered my messages. She disappeared, ghosting the city like she'd been swallowed whole. Devin received a threatening letter the same day the article dropped. And me? I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me everywhere I went. Then came the final twist. 3 weeks later, Marinoir released a statement. Not Etienne this time, corporate, cold, with legal precision. Effective immediately, Etienne Vale has resigned as creative director. Marinoir extends its deepest apologies to Ms. Vega and the design community. We are reviewing our practices to ensure this does not happen again. He'd been forced out. The man who told me to sell my ghost had finally lost his crown. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. Because revenge doesn't stitch back what was stolen. It doesn't give you back the nights you cried over unpaid invoices or the years you doubted if you were good enough. It doesn't erase the bruise of betrayal. What it does is clear space, a silence. And in that silence, you choose what comes next. For me, it was building. 3 months later, Afterlight wasn't just a collection. It was a movement. Influencers wore it on red carpets. Magazines called it the rebellion line. Buyers, real buyers, sent contracts, not condolences. And when I walked my models down a proper runway in New York for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt undeniable. Standing backstage, I thought about Etienne, about Ray, about that rooftop where I swore they'd say my name out loud. They did. And more importantly, so did I. Because the lesson wasn't about revenge, it was about reclamation. The truth is, The fashion world doesn't just steal stitches, it steals voices, futures, lives. But mine? They couldn't erase mine. Not because I was louder, but because I was relentless. So if you ever feel like the world is trying to ghost you, trying to trace your work and pass it off as their own, remember this. Receipts matter, but your voice matters more. I'm Juno Vega. And I'm not just a designer, I'm proof. It's been a year since the rooftop. Los Angeles feels different now. Or maybe I do. My studio is still in Frogtown, still smelling of muslin and steam, but the roll-up door opens to more than joggers and taco truck neon. Now buyers visit, stylists pull samples, interns ask questions like, "How do you know when a hem is finished?" And I smile, because the truth is, you don't. You just decide it's ready to walk into the world, flaws and all. Afterlight became more than a collection, it became my foundation. I've since shown 2 more lines, each one louder, bolder, unapologetic. I signed with a distribution house that doesn't own my soul. I've been in magazines, on panels, in conversations I used to only eavesdrop on, but I haven't forgotten. Ray never came back. Her social profiles went dark. Some say she left for Europe. Some say she burned out. I don't know. I tell myself betrayal doesn't define her. It defines the choices she made. Still, sometimes, when I'm pinning fabric late at night, I wonder if she ever thinks about the stitches she sold. Devin? He stayed in L.A. We meet for coffee every so often. He still carries the guilt, but he also carries my business cards in his bag and hands them out like penance. I tell him we both survived Marinoir. That has to mean something. And Etienne Vale? Last I heard, he tried launching a consultancy firm. It lasted 6 months before folding. He's a ghost now, his name whispered at industry parties with equal parts disdain and relief. I don't toast to him. I don't waste champagne on ghosts. What I do toast to is the lesson I carved from the ashes. Revenge is only the first chapter. What comes after is the harder part, building something worth protecting, louder than any lie, brighter than any theft. The night my latest line debuted in New York, I stood backstage in a gown covered in my signature magnetic stars. The models walked under lights that shimmered like constellations. The audience clapped, cameras flashed, and I felt it. The undeniable truth that I had become my own constellation. Not because I beat them, but because I refused to disappear. I'm Juno Vega. Indie no longer. Designer, always. And this time, the story is mine, alone.